Hey guys, so this is the review for unit test of ratio and proportion. Okay, so let's just go to number one. Okay, write each of these ratio as simple as possible. So just remember that a ratio has a very similar concept as a fraction. So let's say I have like 2 over 4, right? So if I want to simplify this fraction, I only need like to find the common factors of 2 and 4, which like besides 1, and then try to divide both of them by that number. So we know that 2 and 4 has a common factor of 2, right? So we can divide this by 2 and divide it by 2, and we'll get 1 over 2. As simple as that. Okay, or another way to do this, find the highest common factor and try to divide. So for example, like 12 over 18, right? We know that the highest common factor of 12 and 18 is 6. So we can just divide this by 6, you get 2, and then divide this by 6, you'll get 3. Okay, so actually it's the same thing like this one. So let's do this one, number 1a here. So number 1a is 6 to 2. So because we know that the highest common factor of 6 and 2 is 2, so you can divide this by 2 and you divide this by 2, and you will get 3 2 1. Okay, just remember that you need to write it down like this instead of like this. Okay, because this one is a fraction, this one is ratio, and then you read this as 6 to 2. Okay, it's not 2, like not 6 over 2 or 6 per 2. So that's the a basic difference of ratio and fraction. Okay, let's go to the next one. We have 24 and 64. You can find the HCF of these two numbers, but if you want to do it like step by step, you can just like pick a number that you want to use to divide these two numbers, and then you can like do it step by step and maybe like a couple of lines. It's still okay. So for example, like this, we know that these two numbers are even numbers, and even numbers are divisible by 2. So we can just like, divide this by 2 and divide this also by 2. I will get 12 and then 32, right? And then we can simplify it again, right? Because we know, it's still even number, both of them. So we can divide it by 2 again, right? Divide by 2, and then divide this by 2. I will get 6, and then this one is 16, and then it's still an even number, so we can divide this again by 2, right? Divide by 2 again, you get 3. Divide 2 is 8. Okay, so in here we have 3 and 8. This is the simplest form. Why? Because both of these two numbers doesn't have any common factor besides 1, right? So this is going to be the final answer. Okay, or you can find the highest common factor of these two numbers, right? It's 24 and 64. So the highest common factor of 24 and 64 is equals to 8, right? So you can just like go straight and divide both the number with 8, like 24 to 64. Divide this by 8, you'll get 3. Divide this by 8, you'll get 8. Okay, so it's still the same answer. Number 2, write each of these ratio as simple as possible. So in here we have 30 minutes to 2 hours. Okay, so if you see a question like this and then you see that they have units, or previously number 1 we don't have any units, for this one we have units, then you can see that if the units are in the same dimension, like this time, like this one here, we have minutes and hours. Both of them are the dimension of time, right? So we need to make them the same, right? We can like convert minutes to hours, or hours to minutes, or like to seconds, as long as both of these two numbers have the same exact unit. Again, if they have the same dimension, right? Because this is time, so we can change that. So we know that 30 minutes is just 30 minutes, but we can't convert this to hours, right? Because we know that 1 hour is equals to 60 minutes, right? And which means that 2 hours is going to be 2 times 60 minutes, which is equal to 120 minutes. Okay, so we can change that, we can convert that into minutes. So I can write down that as 30 minutes to 120 minutes. Now since we have the same dimension again, and then we have the same unit now, we can just like cancel the what do you call it, the unit, which is in minutes, like can cancel because they are the same. So that leaves us with the 30 and the 120, right? Okay, so I'm gonna rewrite this here. So we have 30 to 120. So I can select, I can have like 0 in the back. It means that both of these numbers are divisible by 10. Okay, like divide that by 10 and divide it by 10, I will get 3 to 12. Okay, so the next one may be because 3 and 12 are have a highest common factor of 3, so we can divide this by 3, we get 1, and then divide this by 3, you get 4. So this is going to be the final answer since it doesn't have any common factors beside 1. Okay, so for number 2b actually is the same thing. We can just like convert that unit because this one here, it has the same dimension, so you need to convert this so that they have the same unit. Okay, so because millimeter and centimeter are the dimension of length, right? So we can convert them. So I'm gonna convert the centimeter to millimeter. We know that centimeter to millimeter is multiplied by 10, so I will get 50 millimeter to 200 millimeter, right? So multiply the 20 by 10 because we know that conversion centimeter to millimeter is just multiplied by 10. So we have that millimeter, so both of them have the same unit, so it leaves us with 50 and to 200. Okay, so these two numbers, the highest common factor is 50, right? So or you can do it like this. Okay, both of them are divisible by 10, so I can like cross this, right? So it's just 5 to 20, right? Because both of them are divisible by 10. Okay, so the next one maybe because we know that 5 and 20 has a highest common factor of 5, so divide that by 5, I get 1, and then this is equals to 4. So this is going to be the final answer because this is the simplest form, and they don't have any other common factor besides 1. Number 3, 1 liter of drink is made by mixing together 100 milliliter orange juice, 200 milliliter mango juice, and the rest is strawberry juice. Question A, how much is strawberry juice? It's not the price, guys. It's the volume. Yeah, the volume of strawberry juice for this one. Okay, so we know that we have a drink here. Let's say we have like a jar of drink, and then this is like 1 liter, right? So this drink, it comes with 100 milliliter of orange, and then a 250 milliliter mango juice, right? And then the rest is the strawberry juice, right? So the simplest way on how to do this is, we know that we have 1 liter, and then it comes with 100 and 150, and then the rest is this one, the strawberry, right? So we only need to find the volume of strawberry in which it makes it 1 liter. Okay, so for this one, you need to convert them first. So it's up to you. You can convert the milliliter to liter or liter to milliliter. But for this one, it's easier for you to convert the liter to milliliter. So I'm going to convert this 1 liter here. So we know that in 1 liter is equals to 1,000 milliliter. Okay, so if you don't know how to convert that, maybe you need to learn about how to convert units. Okay, so we need that. So we have 1000 here is equals to 100 plus 250, and then plus something here, right? So I can just write that. Oh, I know that it means that the strawberry will be equals to 1 liter, right? And subtracted by 1 liter subtracted by 100 milliliter, right? And then subtract that again with 250 milliliter, because milliliter is 250 milliliter is the mango juice. And then we only need, because we know that 1 liter is 1000 milliliter, so we can change that, convert that into 1000, so equals to 1000 milliliter, and then subtract that by 100 milliliter, and then the last one is to subtract that by 250 milliliter. Okay, so we can just like go straight and subtract all of these numbers because they have the same exact units. Okay, so be careful with the unit. Okay, so this is going to be equals to 650 milliliter. Okay, just remember guys that you need to write it down systematically like this. Please don't just write down the final answer. Write down the process, because it's going to be very useful, because sometimes we do some miscalculation and we need to find out where we did the mistake, okay, so that we can learn again and again, and then try to be perfection to the way we do the question, we answer the question. Okay, so that is for question A. So let's go to question B. Find the proportion of oranges. So proportion here, it means that because we know that in this question, the one that is given for you is the total, right? The total of the volume of the drink. So you are going to compare the orange juice with the whole drink. Okay, so the orange juice with the whole drink in here. So we know that we can write down the proportion of orange is going to be equals to the volume of the orange compared to the whole drink, right? So the drink itself, and we know that the orange in here is 100 milliliter, and then we know that the drink in total is 1000 milliliter, right? Okay, since they're the same, we can just cross the unit, and then we can just divide. Okay, just like, oh, this I can cancel the zero and I can cancel the zero. It's just a 1 over 10. But one, because this is talking about ratio and proportion, so instead of writing it down as 1 over 10, we write it down as 1 to 10. Okay, so this is going to be the final answer. Number 4, a factory produces 60 small cakes in an hour. How many cakes will it produce in 4 hours? Okay, so in here, guys, you need to understand again the how to interpret the question and how to retrieve information from the question. In here, it said that it's said 60 cakes in 1 hour. So the easiest way to do this is like, oh, because we know that 60 is in 1 hour, so which means that in 4 hours, but in 4 hours it produced, right, 60 times 4, because we know that 1 hour is 60, so 4 hours, just like multiply that by 4. 60 times 4 is equal to 240 small cakes. Okay, so what is the relation of this with the concept of ratio? So if I want to write it down in ratio, I can write down, I can compare these two things, right? 60 small cakes with this one, which is the time. So I can write down the ratio of the number of the small cakes with to the time. It can be written as 60, right? 60 cakes to 1 hour, right? Because it said that 60 cakes in 1 hour. So if I want to know how many cakes will it produce in 4 hours, you know that, oh, this is just like 4 hours in here because this is the time, and we know that this is like multiplied by 4, and then this is also multiplied by 4. You'll get 240 small cakes. Okay, you will get the same exact value in here. Okay, so we can also use this concept to answer number 2, like not question B, right? Question B in here is that how many you produce in 30 minutes, right? So because we know that we have 60 cakes for 1 hour, we want to know how many cakes will it produce in 30 minutes. Okay, so in here, you can't just like, oh, this is like to multiply by 30. Why? Because it has different unit. So the first thing that you do, okay, can we convert that hour first into minutes? Okay, we can do that because we know that 1 hour is equals to 60 minutes. I can write this down as 60 minutes, right? For 60 cakes produced in 60 minutes. And we know that if you want to go from here from 60 to 30, you divide this by 2, right? So you do the same thing with the other side. You divide this also by 2, you get 30 cakes. So in conclusion, it produced 30 cakes in 30 minutes. Okay, number 5, milk is sold in the supermarket in 3 different sizes. So they have the same brand, but just different sizes. Okay, so we have this information. The one with 500 milliliter costs $1, and the one that is the volume is 1 liter costs $1.5, and then 5 liters costs for $6. The question is, which size container of milk gives the best value for money? So in here, we can use the concept of rate. Okay, so you can do it like in several way, but for this question I'm going to choose if I want to have 1 liter, right? So each of the size, if I want to have 1 liter, what will be the price for each of the size? Okay, so let's say I want this one over here. That is the first one is 500 milliliter compared or to $1, right? So if I want to have 1 liter, we know that 1 liter is equals to 1000 milliliter, right? So I can write that 1000 milliliter, and then because we know that this is multiplied by 2, so you do the same thing, multiply by 2, so you get $2. So for the first size of the milk, if I want to buy 1 liter, I need to pay $2. Okay, so that's the first one. As for the second one, the second size, this one, uh, size. The second one size is 1 liter, which is 1,000 milliliter, right? Costs for $1.5, right? We don't need to change anything because the goal is to have the same exact volume, right, for 1 liter. So for this one, we're done. Okay, so the next one is this one, right? So this one is 5 liter and $6. So I'm gonna write down here. So it's 5 liter means 5,000 milliliter, right? Costs for $6. So if I want to have, let's say, this into 1,000 milliliter again, because we want to have the same exact volume for each of the size, right? So we know that this is like divide this by 5, right? You get 5,000 to 1,000. So you do the same thing. Divide this by 5, you get $1.2. So what does this mean? It means that for size 1, the first one, the small one, sorry, this one, right? 1 liter costs for $2 in here, right? And then for the second one, this one, 1 liter costs for $1.5. Okay, so it's we can see that if we're just comparing the first one and the second one, we know that the second one will be cheaper, right? It has the same volume, but it's cheaper. This one is $2, this one is $1.5. Okay, now let's go to the third one, the big one, which is the 5 liter, which is this one, right? We have wrote the calculation of the rate, which is if we want to know the price of 1 liter for this size, right? What is the price? So if we do that, we get this number over here. So which means that for this size, 1 liter costs for $1.2. So it means that this is going to be the cheapest one, right? Because for the first one is $2, for the second one is $1.5, and the third one is $1.2. So this is going to be cheaper. So in conclusion, we can say that the 5 liter size gives the best value of money. Then question why? Because it's cheaper. Because it's cheaper. Okay, for number 6, the ratio of black and white color pages in a magazine is 2 to 3. If there are 21 white pages, how many color pages are there? Okay, so again, the first thing that we need to do is, because we know that this is a ratio problem, so write down the ratio that you know from the question, which is in here, is the ratio for black to white. So the black is represented by this 2 and the white is represented by this 3. So we can write it down like this. Okay, since we know that this 21 pages is the white one, this 21 is white pages, so we can write this 21 below the white one, right? Because it's white pages. So in here we do the same thing like before, because we know that we multiply 3 by 7 to get 21. So we also need to multiply this by 7 and then we get 14. And since this is a story problem, you need to write down the conclusion. So there are... Okay, the same thing with question B. If there are 60 black pages in here, how many white pages are there? So again, we can write it down like this again, guys. So black to white. And then we know that the 60 is represented as the black pages. So I'll write 60 below the black one, which is this one. And then we know that we multiply 2 by 30, right, to get to 60. And then the easiest way on how to get this number here is just like dividing this 60 and 2. Okay, so because we know that 60 divided by 2 is equals to 30, right? So that 30 comes from here. We can do it like this, okay? And then we also need to multiply this by 30, and then we'll get 90. And then again, because this is a story problems, remember to always write down a sentence as a conclusion. So in here, there are 90 white pages. Number 7, Tom and Jerry are brothers. The ratio of their age is 1 to 2. Their parents give them $30 to share in the ratio of their ages. Question A, how much does each of them receive? Okay, so in here we know that the ratio of Tom and Jerry is 1 to 2, right? Okay, and then their parent gives them $30 to share in the ratio of their ages. Means that this is the sum, right? This is the total. So which means that if you want to solve this kind of questions, which means that this one also we are going to sum it, right? Sum means add it, okay? So whatever we know in the information here, which, whether it's like a summary or like addition or it's being subtracted, we do the same thing with the ratio, okay? So in here, which means that that 30, right, this 30 is going to be 1 plus 2 parts, which is equals to 3. Where do I get this 1 and 2? It's from here, okay? So when we want to solve this kind of questions, we can do it like this, okay? So let's do it one by one because we want to know how many Toms get, how many Jerry get. So Tom is gonna get, because we know that Tom represented by this one over here, this number, which is 1, and then you divide that by the sum, right? Because we know that the sum in here is 1 plus 2, which is 3, so it's 1 over 3. 1 over 3, multiply that by this number here, which is $30. So that leaves $10. Okay, so this is the easiest way on how to do it. Okay, so the same thing with Jerry, because we know Jerry is represented, the ratio of Jerry's money is 2, right? This one. And then the total money that they get is $30, which is the $30 is from like adding these two numbers. So it's 1 plus 2 is equals to 3, right? So again, this 3 is it's just the addition of these two numbers, because we know that this is the addition of their money, right? Okay, so we can multiply this also with $30, and then we'll get $20, right? As we know that 10 plus 20 is equals to 30, right? So it's the same thing. For question B, I write down 3 different pairs of possible ages for the brothers. Okay, so in here we know that Tom with Jerry has a ratio of ages of 1 to 2. Okay, so the possible ages that they have can be like, oh, it's just 1 year and 2 years, or maybe 2 year with 4 year, or maybe 3 year with 6 year, right? So we do the same thing as a ratio. If I multiply this by 2, so I'm multiplying this by 2. So if I multiply this by 3, and I'll also multiply this by 2. So any number you want, but be careful because this is ages, the ages of a person, and then you can't like, okay, maybe I can get like 3,000 with 6,000, right? Maybe I can, oh, I want to multiply this with 3,000, so this is also multiplied by 3,000, you get 6. Although this is true in mathematically, but it's not logical, because we know that the age of a person which is still living is not going to be 3,000. For example, let's say Tom is 8 years old, right? So again, this is like multiply this by 5, multiply this by 8, so also multiply this by 8, you will get 16, right? So maybe it's like this. And then again, you can write down as a sentence, their ages could be 8 and 16, or maybe like 3 and 6, and maybe 10 and 20, and so on, so on, so on. Okay, so just pick 3 pairs that you think is logical enough to be their ages. Number 8, to make a fresh chili salsa, tomatoes, onions, and chilies are chopped and combined in the ratio of 2 to 3 to 5. Wayne wishes to make 1,000 grams of the salsa. How much of each ingredient should he use? Okay, so in here, we're being asked on how much gram is it for each of the ingredients. We know that we have 3 types of ingredients, which are tomatoes, onions, and chilies. And then we know that the ratio is 2 to 3 to 5. Okay, and then the next information that we have from the question is that Wayne wishes to make 1,000 grams of the salsa. So which means that this 1,000 gram is the combination or the sum of all of the tomatoes, the onions, and the chilies, right? So again, because this is the sum or the addition of all of these, so we need to do the same thing with the ratio. So the sum of the ratio is 2 plus 3 plus 5, which is equals to 10. So make this into notes. And then how do we find the tomatoes, the onions, and the chilies? Is the same thing as we do previously in number 7. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do for the tomatoes first. So for tomatoes, okay, because it is represented by 2, so it's going to be 2, and then over, and we know that the sum of the salsa is so 10 parts, so the sum of the ratio is 10, so it's over 10, because we know that this 1,000 gram if is the sum or the addition of all of them, so add all of them, you get 10, and then 2 over 10, you multiply that with 1,000 gram, and then that will be equals to 200 gram. So that is for the tomatoes. We do the same thing for the onions, and we know that the onion represented by this number, which is 3 divided by 10, and multiply that with 1,000 gram, you will get 300 gram. And lastly, the chili, we do the same thing. Chili represented by 5, right, from here. So divide that by 10, because we know that the one that we know, 1,000, is represented by 10. Multiply that again with 1,000 gram, then we will get 500 gram. Okay, number 9, Daffy is trying to eat healthy food. When shopping, he spent according to the following ratio. Meat to fish to fruit is equals to 2 to 3 to 5. He spent $6 on fish. How much does he spend on fruit? We know that $6 here is represented by the fish, right? So if you want to find the fruit, so we can just like focus on the fish and the fruit, right? We don't need the meat yet. So the fish and the fruit is represented by the ratio of 3 to 5. So if I write down fish to fruit is 3 to 5, okay? From here with this one, okay? Okay, so the next thing we do is to write down what we know. We know that the $6 here is the fish, so we can write down $6 below the fish. Okay, and as we know that we can just like multiply 3 by 2 to get 6, right? So which means we can do the same thing over here, and we get this number over here. Okay, so you can write and then again, because this is a story problem, so you need to write down in sentence. So for he spent, okay, the next thing that we want to know is how much does he spend on meat. Okay, the same thing. So because we know that he spent $6 on fish, and we want to know the meat, so we can just focus on the meat and the fish, and which is the ratio is 2 to 3. Okay, so if I write down meat to fish, that will be a 2 to 3, and we know that the fish is $6, so write down 6 over here. And because we know that this is like to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6, so you also multiply this by 2, so you will get $4. And again, write a sentence, $4 on meat. Number 10, Mr. Ali set out on a business trip with a full tank of gasoline. He traveled 100 kilometers. When he arrived at his destination, his gasoline tank was 2 over 5 full. A full tank of gasoline holds 50 liters. Question A, how much gasoline did it take to complete the journey? Okay, so for this kind of questions, we need to write down what we know first. Okay, so he traveled for a 100 kilometer and it is full tank. Okay, so we need to analyze. When he arrived at his destination, his gasoline tank was 2 over 5 full. So the first question is, how much gasoline did he, how much part of gasoline did he use to travel 100 kilometer? Okay, so because we know that the tank, the gasoline should be 1, like 1 minus 2 over 5 parts, okay, is equals to 3 over 5, because we know that it's full tank. Full means like a whole thing, okay. Minus 1 2 over 5 equals to 3 over 5, a full tank. Okay, so this part of this gasoline, he used that for 100 kilometer, because so that is the first thing we know. And then it said that full tank gasoline holds 50 liters, so which means that we can just like, oh, the gasoline use, right, the gasoline use is going to be equal to 3 over 5 times 50 liters, right, because we know that full tank is 50 liters. So 3 over 5 full tank, so it's just like multiply this 3 over 5 with 50, so equals to 30 liters. Okay, so this 30 liters is going to be, it's used to travel 100 kilometers. So question, okay, so yeah, that is for question A. Okay, so and then question B is, what is this average fuel consumption? So average means that you have a number and then divided by another number, right? So the fuel consumption, which means that it's going to be liter per kilometer. So the average is going to be equals to 30 liter over 100 kilometer. Okay, so just divide that, so it's going to be 3 over 10, or you can write down in decimal, is 0 over 0, yes, 0 0.3 liters per kilometer. It takes 6 men 4 days to build a shed. How long would it take if 12 men were to build a shed? So for this question, we're going to use an inverse ratio. Why? Because we know that if one is increasing, the other one is decreasing, right? So for example, this one, it takes 6 men. I mean, it needs 4 days for 6 men to build it. So if we are adding people, it means that the time will decreasing, right? It's getting faster, right? So which means that we're going to use an inverse ratio. So we can just write down the ratio of the men and the time. So the men, the number of men, right? The number of men, and versus the time, right? And we know that from the question, 6 men needs 4 days. Okay, so and the question is how long would it take if 12 men, so 12 men means the 12 should be here. And as we know that, because we know that 6 to 12 is multiplied by 2, but instead of like multiplying this by 2, you divide this by 2. Why? Again, because this is inverse ratio. If one is increasing, the other is decreasing. Okay, so logically, if you add more people, then the faster the time you will use to make the shed, right? So divide that by 2, you will get 2. So which means that we can conclude that 2 days needed by 12 men to build a shed. Okay, the same thing with question B. If the same shed took 12 days to build, how many men built it? Okay, again, from the question, we know that the number of men to the time, we have a ratio of 6 to 4, right? From here, 6 to 4. And then in the question B, if the same shed took 12 days, so 12 days is the time, which 12 is days, which is the time. So we can write down 12 in here, right? And then we want to know how many men, right? So again, you do the same thing as ratio, but this time do it in inverse, because again, if one increasing, the other is decreasing. So we go to 4 to 12, you multiply this by 3, right? So instead of like multiplying this by 3, you divide this by 3. Okay, so 6 divided by 3 is equals to 2. So we can conclude that 2 men will take 12 days to build the shed. 12. The ratio of money that Andy, Booty, and Charles have is 3 to 5 to 8. If the sum of their money is $320, how much do each of them have? So actually, it has a very similar concept as the one we have for number 7, I think, where we find the Tom and Jerry's money. So we can just like see what we get, what we have in the question. We have that the sum of their money is 320. So again, because we know that this is a sum, so we need to do the same thing with the ratio. So we need to sum all of these, right? The sum of these, so the sum of that is going to be equals to 3 plus 5 plus 8 which is going to be equals to 16, right? So this is going to be very important for you because we're going to use this 16 to be the denominator for the calculation. Okay, so let's do that one by one. So we want to know, the first one is Andy's money, right? So Andy's money is equals to, because Andy is represented by this number here, 3, so it's 3 over, and then we know that that 16 that $20 is represented by 16, so it's over 16, right? Multiply that with 320. Again, you can just use the calculator to calculate this, or I can just like cancel, right? So divide this by 16, I get 1, divide this by 16, I get 20, so it will be $60. Same thing with Budi, because Budi is represented by this number right here, which is 5, so it's going to be 5 over the same thing, because we have the sum is 16, right? This one, multiply that with 220, right? So you will get $100. Charlie is represented by this number, which is 8, so it's 8 over 16, multiply that again with $320, and then you will get 8 times 2 is $160. Okay, so if you notice, if you add them up, you will get $320, right? You get back here, right? So that's just like the proof that the answer is correct. 13. The ratio of marbles that Don, Eddie, and Frank have is 4 to 7 to 3. If the sum of Don and Eddie has is 33 marbles, how many marbles does each of them have? So for actually it's have the same concept with the previous question, but be very careful. You need to really pay attention to details from the question and from the information that is given. Okay, so this 33 here, it is, yes, the sum, but not the sum for all of them. It's just the sum for Don and Eddie's marbles. So instead of like adding all of these numbers, so you only need to add the one that Don's and Eddie's parts. Okay, so Don and Eddie versus represented by 4 and 7. So this 33, right, is the sum of Don and Eddie. So the sum of Don and Eddie in here as the ratio is, the ratio will be 4 plus 7, because we only use this 4 and 7, which is Don and Eddie's, right? Don's and Eddie's. Okay, so be very careful with that. Okay, so please read the question carefully. Okay, so the question, the next question is how many marbles does each of them have? So we do the same thing as the previous, like the previous one. If you want to know Don's marbles, that will be equals to, because Don is represented by this 4, so it's going to be 4 over, okay, so the one that we are summing is this 4 plus 7, which is equals to 11, right? So it's over 11, okay, not adding all of them, but adding just Don and Eddie's, okay? So 4 of 11, and then times that with 33, because we know that the sum of Don and Eddie's marbles is 33. Okay, so equals to, we can cancel this 11 and 33, so it's in 1 and 2, and then we'll get 12. Okay, and don't forget guys, you need to write down the unit actually. Okay, so the next part, the same thing. We want to know Eddie's now. Eddie's marble. So Eddie is represented by 7, right? This one. So it's 7 over, again, the same exact number is 11. Multiply by that by 33, you'll get 21 marbles. And then the last one is Frank. So the Frank has is represented by 3, right? So it's 3 over 11 times 33, and then you will get 9 marbles. Okay, if you want to check, is it true that Don's and Eddie's marble is 33? You can just like add. Okay, 12 plus 21, because Don's and Eddie's 12 plus 21 is equals to 33, right? So it's the same thing. Okay, so which means that the answer is correct. 14. The ratio of the number of books that Gabriel, Hank, and Ian has is 9 to 11 to 14. If the difference of the numbers of books that Ian and Gabriel has is 15, how many books does each of them have? Okay, so again guys, analyze the question again. Then the thing that you know here, you have the ratio of Gabriel and Hank and Ian's books, and then this represent their ratio. And then
the next information that you have from the question is if the difference of the number of book that Ian and Gabriel has is 15. So again, you only need to focus on Ian and Gabriel's for this 15. Okay. So Ian and Gabriel is represented by this 9 and 14, right? And then in here it said difference. Okay, so previous question we always summing, right? Because we know that they're the total. You add them all. For this one, is difference. Difference means that you subtract. Okay, so difference means subtracting. So we know that Gabriel. So let's focus on Gabriel and Iron, right? Gabriel and Iron here is represented by 9 to 14, right? 9 to 14. And then we know that the difference, right? Difference means it's subtracted, right? The difference of Gabriel and ions means that it's going to be 14 minus 9. You can subtract 9 minus 14 actually, but when we're talking about difference, it means that you are subtracting the larger number with the smaller number. Okay, so 14 minus 9 is equals to 5. So this is going to be our important information as to be used as the denominator, like the previous question that we have done before. Okay, so because we know that the difference is 5, okay, so this 15 is represented by this 5, right? So if you want to know each of them, right, so let's find one by one. So Gabriel here, the number of Gabriel's book is going to be equals to, because Gabriel is represented by 9, so you write down 9 over, and then because we know that the difference is 5, right, so it's going to be over 5, and I multiply that by 15. So what do I get this 15 from here? Okay, so this 15 is represented by this 5. Okay, so it's going to be equals to, we can cancel this, and then equals to 27 books. Okay, the same thing with Hank. So Hank is represented by 11, right? So it's 11 over 5 times 15. Okay, cancel this again, you get 3, and then equals to 33 books. And the last one is iron. Iron is represented by 14, right? Iron. And that will be 14 over 5 multiplied by 15. You can cancel this. You get 3. And that will be equals to 42 books.